Hello, my name is Carmack, and in today's After Effects tutorial, I'm going to be showing you the 5 most used motion graphic effects that Dude Perfect uses in all of his YouTube videos. From animated lines, to tracking arrows and circles onto objects he wants you to see in the scene, how to create an epic 3D tracked title card, how to make an animated counter for something like a time clock, or showing off the miles per hour speeding up, creating fun character heads that can be used as little player icons throughout the videos, and more. If you like Dude Perfect and you want to animate like his videos, this is the perfect place to be. And before we jump into this incredible tutorial, I have to let you know that this video is sponsored by my sugar daddy, Squarespace. So our first effect is a number counter. In Dude Perfect's videos, he'll use this to showcase how fast something is going, like showing the increasing miles per hour, or the distance that someone is throwing a basketball or shooting an arrow, or even a countdown or a timer for how long a challenge is going. So I'm gonna show you how to do this. We have a guy on a mountain bike speeding down a hill. Very cool look. So step number 1 is coming up to the text tool, and we'll just type in 0. And we're gonna duplicate that text layer, just gonna bring it next to the 0, and we're gonna type in MPH. So we have our 0 miles per hour, but over here in the text character window, I'm just gonna make MP4 really small like this. And so for now, we can actually ignore miles per hour. I'm gonna make it invisible. So to turn this into an animated counter, we're actually gonna go to our effects and presets, and we're gonna type in the effect slider. And you'll see slider control. We're just gonna put that on top of our 0. If we twirl down the layer to show our text and our effects, what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab the pick whip of source text here and connect it to the slider. So now if we animate the slider to go up, you can see it increases the number. However, there's a weird thing with this specific combination where if you create a keyframe for slider, and then let's say I animate it to go to 200, if I isolate this, watch what happens. It for some reason includes all the decimal points in between the whole numbers. There's an easy fix to this. It's this expression right here. We're gonna copy and paste it into our source text. I have it in the description below, so just copy that, and then we'll come back over to our source text layer right here. And if we hold down the Alt button and click on this stopwatch, we can copy and paste this Math.round expression. And now it will get rid of the decimal points and only show us whole numbers with our animated slider. So I'm gonna delete the keyframes and just set it back to 0. I'll bring back my miles per hour and I'll put my 0 next to it. And what I'm gonna do, that's just like a stylistic touch that I liked, I'm gonna turn these both into 3D layers. And I'm going to grab the parent and link tool of miles per hour and attach it to the 0. And I'm just going to put the 0 down here in the corner of this video to make it look cool. And you can see right here the bike starts moving, so I'll create a keyframe for 0 on my slider control. And as he starts to speed up, I'll just change this to, let's say, 80. This will inform where you need to move your miles per hour, so we can just move that over to the side, move that however we want, something like this. So now if we watch that back, we've got this cool look where the slider is going up as the bike is getting faster. And then if you want to spice this up, if you just go to effects and presets and type in glow. I love throwing a glow on just about anything. In the effect controls, you can crank up the radius a little bit. Just copy and paste that on your miles per hour, and bam, you've got an animated counter. And if you want to make the numbers more accurate to what's happening, you can right click on these keyframes and easy ease them. And in the curve graph, we can just grab this first curve and make it start slow. So it kind of eases with the speed of your character here. So if we watch that back, you can see it slowly gets faster as he gets faster himself. The next effect is so cool. In Dude Perfect's videos, he always has these custom title cards when he's presenting a team or like a specific thing that they're gonna ride. And they're always hyper stylized and really creative. And you can see here in After Effects, I made this absolutely gorgeous title card for this character here with the same type of texture you would see in a Dude Perfect video, along with like a graphic like that explosion that you see. And they're always 3D tracked into the scene and they look incredible. So I'm gonna break down how I made this incredible title graphic, and it's actually super easy. So our first step is gonna be coming up to the Roto Brush tool, and we are gonna mask our character out for the length of the scene. Once your character is perfectly masked out, we'll come down here and hit freeze. You'll end up with a super sexy mask like this. We'll just duplicate our footage and then delete the roto brush from the bottom layer. And so now to be able to 3D track in an epic title card, we're gonna grab our bottom clip, and over here on the right side of After Effects, we'll click on Tracker and Track Camera. And once your scene is fully tracked, you'll see all your different skittles, which are the colorful tracking dots. And once you find a target that's like straight facing the camera, we're going to right click on it and create text and camera. We're going to bring the text behind our mask and just rotate it and orient it to to look how you would like. I'm gonna push it back in Z space so the track is behind the character, like a few feet in actual physical distance. In the character panel, we can just scale this up. And you can see here we have a beautiful 3D track. In lieu of some Dude Perfect videos, I'm going to rename it Team Enter Yellow. This looks really cool, and you can just crank up this here if your bottom text is too far away from your original one. I'm gonna use my rotation bar here to just kind of give it a cool orientation within the scene. That looks pretty epic. So we have our title card and now how to texturize it to make it look really cool. So I'm basing this specific one off this example from the Dude Perfect video. I have pre-downloaded all of these different textures here. I'll link them below, some free textures that you can download online. And what I'm gonna do is I'll just grab this one here, Grunge Overlay 14, and bring that into our scene. I'm gonna turn it into a 3D layer. I'll make it invisible for now. And if I click on the Team Yellow text layer and drop down this arrow, I'm just gonna copy the transform value and then paste it onto our grunge layer. And I'm just going to move it up in front of the text and scale it down so it fits the same size. I'll bring it behind my mask, but over top of my text. And so it's 3D tracked in the exact same spot the text is. Now this is the really important part. We're gonna grab our grunge overlay, and right here under track matte, we're gonna grab the track matte pick whip and attach it to Team Yellow. So now Team Yellow is just this gorgeous textury layer. And now to stylize it to be a specific color, for example, Team Yellow, in effects and presets, we're gonna type in tint and put that on top of our grunge layer. And we're gonna map our whites to be, say, bright yellow, kind of like this, maybe a little orangey. And then we're gonna map our blacks to kind of a darker orange color. Maybe something like this. This looks super freaking cool. And then the sauce that's gonna make this look amazing is in effects and presets. If we type in the effect glow, we're gonna put that on top of our grunge layer as well. And right here under glow threshold, we'll bring that down to make any whites really pop. And then we can play around with the radius of this glow to make it kind of blend in and not be so sharp. And once you have all these effects, you can keep playing around with the look by constantly changing how your tint looks. Ooh, I think that looks really freaking good. Dang, that looks awesome. And now because Team Yellow, like the actual text here, is behind this grunge overlay, we can actually make the Team Yellow text visible. And what we'll do is we'll click on the Team Yellow text, and in effects and presets, we'll add a drop shadow. You can change the direction to make it look and seem more 3D, and the distance to make it stand out, kind of like this. Crank up the shadow just a little bit, and I'll make the drop shadow kind of like a dark orange. Let's say I wanted to reorient my text layer. What I'm gonna have to do now is select my grunge overlay, this layer, and grab our parent and link and attach it to Team Yellow. So when I click on the text layer, the texture moves along with it. And because the grunge layer is referencing the text layer, you can always go back to the layer panel and scale it up, and it won't affect your grunge layer. And you can change the text to like maybe epic, dude. You just have to make sure that your grunge layer is always scaled big enough to cover everything. So now this is looking really good, and in a lot of the Dude Perfect videos, there'll be some kind of animation that coincides with these text animations. So I went to a website that has a bunch of free explosion assets called productioncrate.com, also linked in the description, and I grabbed this aerial explosion, which is super cool. I'll put this below our mask and kind of over top of our text a little bit. So I'll grab my explosion, and I'll skip to the part in the explosion that I think is cool, which is this one here. I'm gonna make this a 3D layer as well. And what I'm gonna do is click on the Team Yellow, copy and paste the transform value onto the explosion. Actually, I'm gonna move the explosion behind the text and scale it up to be a little bigger. So we end up with something incredibly epic looking like this. And when we watch it all back, this just looks so epic and such a power pose for this person. And again, because this grunge layer is referencing the text below it, you can always go to your effects and presets and grab a text animation like opacity flicker in and put that on top of your Team Yellow text layer, and then it will fade in with the texture on top of it. And that's the power of the alpha matte. Now it just looks powerful. And that is how you make a 3D title card like Dude Perfect. Effect number 3, you can see here in After Effects, is when you have a classic object track. So you can see something like a baseball or maybe a dart. Dude Perfect has a lot of these tracked elements in his videos showcasing where something is in 3D space. This, like the counter, can be applied to a million different things. So on our layer with the object we want to track, in this instance, it's the golf ball. We're going to go to the frame where we start seeing the golf ball, and we're going to go back over to the tracker panel, click on our footage and hit track motion. And we're gonna grab this track point here and just make it a little bigger. And we're going to put it at the center of whatever object we're trying to track. And then we'll hit this button right here, analyze frame backwards 1. In this case, there's a bit of motion blur in this scene, so you're gonna have to do some of this manually, but you're just gonna constantly bring this tracker point to the middle of the object that you're trying to track. Sometimes you have to do this frame by frame, but if you have a high shutter speed like this clip here, you can just hit Analyze Forward in the tracker panel. So from here, I can probably just hit this Analyze Forward button, and now you see it's doing a great job tracking the golf ball. And once you have all the frames of your object tracked into the scene, just like this, we'll come up to Layer, New, and Null Object. And back in the tracker panel, we're gonna hit Edit Target, and we're just gonna select this null object that we created, hit Apply, and OK. So you can see this null object is now following the path of the golf ball. So now what we can do is we can come up to right here under our shape layers, and I'll grab the ellipse tool. Hold down Shift as I drag a circle so it is perfectly even. And if your circle looks like this, all you have to do is come up here to Fill, and you'll check this box, which is No Fill. And we'll bring that over top the object that we want shown. We can change the stroke to be however big we want. I think this looks really nice. And now what we're gonna do is in the layers panel, actually I'll rename this to circle. We're gonna grab the parent and link tool and attach it to this null object. Now watch what happens. It's gonna follow the path of the null object. So our circle will always show us where our golf ball is. This looks incredible. And by the way, let's say instead of a circle, we wanted to do a rectangle like a pointer. We'll grab the polygon tool here. We'll create a polygon like this, and it defaults to this pentagon, but what we want to do is over here in the properties panel, we'll change the points right here to 3. Then we'll rotate it, and we'll rotate it to point straight down, and we'll put it over top of our golf ball. And the arrows we don't want to stroke, so we'll go back up here to fill, and right here we'll just click solid color, and we can get rid of the stroke. I'll make this red. And if we grab the parent and link tool of this arrow and attach it to the null, now we have the arrow showing us where the ball is. And a little stylistic effect they use in the Dude Perfect videos is creating beveled edges. So the arrow looks kind of 3D. So the way we're gonna do that is in Effects and Presets, we'll type in bevel alpha, and we'll put that on top of our shape layer. And you'll see in the effect controls, edge thickness, we'll crank that up. So now we have kind of a 3D looking arrow, and that just looks much nicer. And we can take that bevel alpha, copy it, and if we want to go with the circle, we just paste it onto the circle. So you can see the beveled edges of the circle, making it look 3D. So at every point in the video, we see where the golf ball is. And to add a little bit of pop, if we go over here to our properties panel and click on our circle, we can create a keyframe for size right here. And right before he hits the golf ball, like right here, we'll change the size to 0. So the circle shows up as the golf ball leaves the ground. And obviously, to make it more smooth, we'll right-click these keyframes and easy ease. And that is how you create a perfect location indicator for any type of ball or activity that you're doing, like Dude Perfect. Effect number 4 from Dude Perfect is animating lines. You can see here in After Effects, I've animated this line to showcase where people would run around this track. Dude Perfect uses these animated lines to showcase like where someone is throwing a certain object, maybe out of a plane, or highlighting the distance between two things, or just the path of motion of an object. This is one of those effects that's also very versatile and can be used in many different ways. And let me explain how they do it. So here we have the shot of our track and it is moving. So what we're gonna do is click on this layer and we're gonna go to Tracker and Track Camera. And once it tracks, you'll see all of your different skittles. And I'll just make a huge selection and right click. And this time we're gonna create null. And so now you can see your track null in your 3D camera, and the null is tracked right there onto your field. So with nothing selected, we're gonna grab our pin tool and we're gonna make sure that our fill is set to none and our stroke is 14 or something big enough, as you can see here, where you'll be able to see what you're making. So we'll click where we wanna start our line, and the first thing we're gonna do after we do that is click on this shape layer we've created and turn it into a 3D layer. And so now we will go through the scene and with the pin tool, create a line of which we want to animate into the scene. And once you've created this path, what we're going to do is grab the parent and link tool and attach it to the track null. And so now our line that we animated into the scene is tracked in. And so the way we're going to animate the line coming into the scene is we'll drop down our shape layer, and you'll see this little arrow right here that says add. We're going to click on that, and we're going to go to this right here, trim paths. We're going to drop down trim paths, and you see right here, start, end, and offset. If we animate the end, you can see here, we are creating the line animating in or out of the scene. So we're going to start the end at 0, create a keyframe, and then over however long you want the line to take, we're going to keyframe it to 100. So if we watch that back, you can see our line animating into the scene. And so that's basically most of the line animations that Dude Perfect uses in his videos. But sometimes you'll see, like right here, they used a dashed line. And the way they achieve that, in the shape layer, if you drop down the stroke, you'll see right here dashes. And what we're gonna do is we're just gonna click on this plus button. So now you can see the line is dashed. What we're gonna do is you see this dash number is 10. We can crank that up to make the dashes bigger or as big as you'd like. So now it'll animate onto your scene as a dashed line. And like any good animation, if you go to your effects and presets and type in glow and throw that on top of your line, crank up the radius, it just adds an extra layer of spice. And now you have a Dude Perfect animated line. And now the last effect is silly, but really easy. You can see here in After Effects, I've animated all these people's heads to pop up with a colorful stroke with this bouncy animation. And a lot of Dude Perfect's videos, they show off the contestants who are playing a game with this exact animation with just their face with a stroke around their head. And they're often animated into the scene with a bounce or tracked onto somebody's head like this. And I'm just gonna show you how to do that really quickly. So obviously the first step is taking whatever characters are in your video, open it up in Photoshop, use the pen tool, mask out their head, and then export all of their faces as PNGs. And then you bring all of your faces into After Effects like we have right here. We'll start with Mr. Spider-Man over here, Tom Holland. And what we're gonna do is right click on whoever's head. Right here, we'll go to Layer Styles, and then Stroke. You can drop down the stroke and you can pick the color here. Maybe for him, we'll do red for Spider-Man. What you can do is copy the layer styles like right here, and then just paste that onto all of the other faces like this. And then you can just go through the layer styles of each layer and just change the color of the stroke. And voila, you have all the faces with their respective stroke. But the fun animation I'm gonna show you is, let me create a keyframe for Mr. Tom Holland here. For scale, I'll create a keyframe for scale, and then at the beginning of the composition, I'll set the scale to 0. So he's just popping up like that. And then there's actually an article I'll link below that has this bounce expression. It's like my most used thing in the entire world. I will copy this expression here, and if you hold down the Alt button and click on Scale, and you paste this into the expression box, when it scales up, it does this little bounce. So we can create a keyframe for scale on all the heads, and at the beginning of the composition, set them to 0. And once the expression is copied onto all of the different scale keyframes, you get a cool, fun animation like this. And let's say this guy right here is Tom Holland, and it's a Dude Perfect video. We can bring in Tom Holland's head on top of this man, and we'll link this layer to the null object that's tracked on his head. And so this is very Dude Perfect, right, to showcase the character in the video with their head. And then you can have something like this. Super fun, silly effect from Dude Perfect that I think you should definitely know. So those are the 5 most used motion graphic effects in Dude Perfect's videos. Leave a comment down below if you have any questions about any of these editing tricks. Follow me on Instagram where I post incredible visual effects. And it's time to thank my incredible sponsor, Squarespace. I have to introduce to you Squarespace's Design Intelligence. You might not know this about me, but I have the biggest collection of vintage life magazines in the world, and I want to create a site showing off this American history in a really pretty way. And so with Squarespace's Design Intelligence, I can create a website that looks perfect and vibey. So with these vintage magazines, maybe some cool vintage looking shapes to show off some covers, a nice color scheme that really matches the dark tones of these magazines. And if I need some assistance, they have award-winning templates. So I actually have a lot of duplicates of these vintage magazines, and I want to sell them as collector's items to other people. And what's amazing about that is Squarespace has online stores you can create. So if you have products, whether that's jewelry, plants, vintage magazines, you can create a beautiful online store with Squarespace. And even better, Squarespace Payments is endless. They have all the popular payment methods like Klarna and Afterpay, all the buy now, pay later options. And if you don't think Squarespace is incredible yet, well, how about the fact that they gave me a code to give you for 10% off your first website or domain. So go get a discount on creating a website that will bolster your image as a professional. Really, anybody can benefit from having an amazing website. So build it with Squarespace. Where there's a will, there's a way. My name is Will, and have a nice day.